ripple effect. What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Rika, the Rants, also known as Ricky Rants, and a great episode for you today. Today, we're doing a Patreon podcast. What these Patreon podcasts are a way of me giving back my Patreon supporters. So if you donate as little as $1 a month, you can be on one of these Patreon podcasts, and it's a way of connecting with other listeners, connecting with myself, all of us hanging out. We talk about anything and everything, and it's always a blast. I never know who shows up, who's not going to show up. Sometimes I get a little nervous because I'm like, I hope people show up, and I'm not talking to myself, but they're always fun, even if it's just a couple people or if it's a lot of people. They're always a blast. So donate as little as $1 a month and you can be on the next Patreon podcast. And like I said, I usually try to do them roughly around once a month. Sometimes life gets a little busy. I also sometimes have a lot of guests booked, so it ends up being maybe once every month and a half, 2 months, but I definitely try to get these done as often as I can, at least once a month if I can. And it's a great way of giving back to my Patreon supporters and showing them how much I really appreciate the time and money and effort that they put into supporting the Ripple Effect podcast. And here we go. Let me get my my Patreon supporters in now, and let's see who's hanging out. Let me admit them all and see what happens. Oh, got a packed house today. Ronnie, what's up, bud? Jeff?
All good, all good. I have to pause the Age of Empire I'm watching.
What are you watching?
Age of Empire, do you know the game from like 20 years ago?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
We need that.
Watch-
Everybody needs
Yeah,
needs to tune out and do something mindless.
for sure.
Hello. Am I now in?
Yeah, is that Rob? Yeah, you're in.
Yeah, hi Ricky. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, like I said in the email, I'm not at work tomorrow, so it's not bad for me to stay up late tonight.
It sounds like you're not from the US, or if you are in the US, you're not originally from the US. Where are you calling from today?
Scottish borders, a wee town called Selkirk, just about 40 miles south of Edinburgh.
Awesome. Well, you and Ronnie are definitely staying up late to join us, so that's awesome. What time is it there? Are you guys 5 hours ahead?
Yeah, it's just gone 10:05, so it's not that late. But obviously, if I was getting up for work tomorrow, I'd be getting up at 5. So I'd have been in bed by an hour by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if you're at the pub, then it's not that late. If you have to work the next,
If you go, yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's midnight for me, but I have the evening shift, so it's no
nice.
worries.
Awesome. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. Sorry, Ricky. You'll know me better as probably Spheretical from Twitter. I'm the one that posts the Graham Hancock tweet every now and again saying, "Don't forget, we may be a civilization with amnesia, but don't forget to go on Ricky's podcast."
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and I keep retweeting it. You know what's funny? Graham Hancock is one of those people that I've gotten so close to getting on the show years ago. I remember we had a little bit of an email thread going back and forth, and it was friendly, and he was just like busy doing stuff, and he's just like, reach out again in a couple months or whatever it was. And I'm usually pretty good at following up because doing this podcast for a long time, I realized that, and honestly, as my podcast has grown and I have lots of people reaching out to me about being on the show, I find myself like forgetting to get back to people, or maybe reading an email when I'm busy, and then I'm like, oh my god, I completely forgot to reply to that. So I know what it's like, and obviously, somebody like Graham Hancock has many more people reaching out to him than I have reaching out to myself. So I definitely give people the benefit of the doubt. So I don't mind following up, and I don't assume they're giving me the runaround. I'm assuming, most of the time I try to assume that they are busy, and in most cases that's usually what it is. And then if I reach out to them again, and then if it's good timing, they end up coming on. And I've had a lot of luck with that. It just kind of staying consistent with trying to get people on. But Graham was just one of those guys where like I always end up reaching out to him at like a bad time. So every time I'd reach out to him, it was like, okay, bad timing. Now he's traveling, or now he's taking a break from interviews or whatever. And but he's one of those people that have been on my bucket list for so long. And now it's only gotten more interesting because I'm really, as you guys have probably heard me talk about on recent podcasts, I'm really intrigued with this not yet released Randall Carlson podcast, which has really poked my interest and sparked my interest in regards to like, okay, Rogan's had so many controversial figures on that show. People from the left, people from the right, people from, whatever, even obviously not in the beginning of COVID, but closer to the end of it, he was much more comfortable with having people on that were pushing against the mainstream narrative and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, he's obviously not, completely straying away from anybody who's controversial. And I just don't see how a person who's coming on your show to talk about alternative energy or possible lost wisdom that is helping with, understanding how the pyramids were built or whatever, like, how is that too controversial to be released? Now, I've heard the alternative perspective that maybe he thinks that he's full of horseshit, for lack of a better term, and basically he just thinks like, I'm not going to give this guy a platform. I don't think that the technology works. I think that he's lying. I think whatever. But I've heard Randall Carlson talk about this, and I've talked to Graham from the Grind America show about this, and they've had Randall Carlson on quite a few times, and they're pretty close with Randall Carlson, and he even sent me a interview that Randall Carlson did after the JRE podcast, and he talked about how he believes like he will eventually release it and all this stuff, the episode, but he never really went into detail on exactly why he thought they didn't release it yet. It wasn't, it wasn't quite clear after this podcast interview that Randall Carlson did that what exactly was making him hesitant. But this whole thing has gotten me just like really intrigued, because I do think, as you guys probably know, like I do think there's something about the universe, there's something about our reality, there's something about the world that might have been discovered previously, has been lost, and maybe maybe it's the Freemasons, maybe it's Knights Templar, maybe it's some type of mathematical understanding of the world. There's could be some lost knowledge and information, and that's what I'm curious about. Like, has somebody figured that out? Has somebody figured out some technology, some understanding of who knows, gravity or tones and sounds, something that would explain the pyramids, and also completely change our technology and what we're capable of, and maybe even make us reanalyze all these things that we think we understand, like sound and gravity and all these other things. So it's intriguing. So have any of you guys gone down this rabbit hole or looked into any of this? The guy Malcolm, what the hell is Malcolm's last name? I'll look it up before we get off the show. But yeah, Malcolm something something. I think it starts with the B. But you guys have any input on any of this, or am I the only one who seems to be super intrigued with this?
No. I think it boils down to I'm gonna mix my words up now. Compartmentalization. You know how all the sciences of, you know, like physics don't talk to chemistry, chemistry don't talk to biology, biology don't talk to geology. That was deliberate. And everyone forgets that Graham Hancock isn't a scientist. He was a journalist, and he came at it from a completely different angle, where he was just looking at the facts, figures, numbers, and dates, and then put that all together. So I think that's critically important to remember, that you know, and then when people, and then they use that against him and say, well, he's not a scientist, he's not an archaeologist, he's not this, he's not that. No, he's a critical thinker that's put lots of pieces together, and he's taken those pieces from people that don't talk to each other and put them together.
Yeah, that seems to be an issue, as you said, in all the fields. And I guess that's the way they want it. Put people to just learn one thing so they don't branch out and get to know and can interact with each other and actually make sense of the world.
Yeah, and Ronnie, thanks for getting his name, Malcolm Bendel, and he is on Twitter, and I did tweet him and Rogan, and trying to pick up some steam with getting people to put some pressure on him. I haven't even been intrigued with any of Rogan's recent guests. I know he had Eric Weinstein on, I think, today, but I keep checking the feed because I'm like waiting for the episode to be the new one out that day. And I mean, now I don't know if we're up to like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, whatever it may be, but it's like we're quite a ways away from when he recorded the episode. And if you go to Malcolm Bendel's his Twitter account, he has a video, a short little video, which I retweeted, of him walking around the JRE studios. And I was super excited about this episode because I was intrigued with it right when Randall Carlson started talking about this and this technology back at the end of last year when he was last on Rogan's podcast, and he said he would give us more information the following year. So, you know, I was like, okay, well, I can't wait to hear more about this. And I've back in the day, I've done so much research into, you know, all these people who potentially had alternative technologies, alternative energy sources, all these you know, all these really interesting people, you know, and done a lot of research on planned obsolescence and how, you know, they suppress technology and all this stuff. And so I was always intrigued with like this type of stuff. And to me, it's like I'm curious if it's possible that what makes the, like him saying that the show's too controversial, or saying that this guy is pseudoscience and he's not, you know, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and that's why he doesn't want to release it. I'm curious if that is a cover for maybe somebody forcing him to not release it. Because really think about it. If somebody came on the biggest podcast in the world and they're saying, I'm spending millions of dollars, and I know some people have also talked about Malcolm's his history, because he's a businessman, and apparently some people have that's a nice thing about having a podcast, like listeners are constantly sending me stuff, and some people have mentioned that he could potentially be, you know, like I don't know, like he's done some scams in the past, and he's had some shady things in his history and some of his businesses and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, well, he's an entrepreneur, he's a businessman. Like, yeah, I mean, every businessman who has a lot of money has had some failures, or has had some maybe has pissed off some people along the way of making his millions. And somebody could find something bad about him and say, hey, look, this is a reflection of his character. Look, this guy's a shithead. But I don't know. That doesn't explain it all for me, because again, like there's plenty of people that Rogan has had on his show who has plenty of bad press, and you know, you could find shady things about their history. So it's all really intriguing, because I maybe it's just me being optimistic and me being hopeful, but what I want to believe is that I want to believe that there's information that this guy could at least be scratching the surface about that could change the world forever. And this guy could have you know, come close to just breaking some laws that we've created about how the universe works, and made us really close to making us rethink everything and maybe better understand our history and our ancient ancestors and some of the wisdom that they have. You know, I'm trying to get Jimmy Corsetti on the show. He's another guy that I'm like really fascinated about, and he's really open-minded, and he's also friends with Graham and Randall, and he's really close to this topic. So I'm trying to get him on the show. And if you guys haven't seen his website or his YouTube channel, it's called Bright Insight, and he's also been on the Rogan podcast a few times. But he very much is willing to go down this conspiratorial rabbit hole in regards to like, why are they suppressing something like this? I mean, think about it. Why is Graham Hancock having a alternative view of our history? Why would that be a threat? Like, why would they go to such lengths to like mark him as like a dangerous person? And to me, it's like when you look at the way they treat Graham Hancock, you look at what's going on with Malcolm Bendel, you look at you know, obviously the pushback against Randall Carlson, you look at all these things, and then when you start like kind of, you know, really thinking conspiratorial and like I said, like the Freemasons and like maybe that this ancient wisdom or information that is kind of you know, maybe secret societies are keeping secret from the public, it makes you wonder. And like Rob said, he's absolutely right. Like, I think that this idea of having like, you know, like if you're not an expert, then your opinion doesn't matter, and like kind of discrediting everybody who's not an expert in that field is ridiculous, because in many cases some of the most interesting theories that, you know, come from people who aren't experts in those fields. So to me, that like, this is all super fascinating. I forget who said it. It was I was listening to Jimmy Corsetti on the Danica Patrick podcast, which I actually was looking for interviews with Jimmy Corsetti, and I just ran into her podcast. And apparently she's way more fascinating than I thought. I thought she was just like a retired NASCAR driver. I'm always making fun of NASCAR drivers because it's just funny. And but I'm sure there's a lot of intelligent NASCAR drivers, but you know, you always think like Southerners wearing a NASCAR hat, you know, living in a trailer. Again, I'm joking, but and like you could tell she's very knowledgeable on these topics. And she brought up a quote that I don't know, it sounded familiar. I'm not sure if I read it before, but it was a Tesla quote about how if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand, I think, sound, plasma, tone, and gravity, or something like that. And these are kind of the ingredients that
that 3, 6, and 9.
Okay.
The frequency. Oh yeah, but it's the numbers 3, 6, and 9 come to my mind when you say Tesla.
Yeah, and you're right. It was frequency. It was a couple of things. It was frequency and a couple other things. And that, you know, again, this all makes me think about the how some people have talked about frequencies and tones being used to move these boulders, you know, and it just it's wild, right? Like there could be something that have been, you know, something about our universe, something about our reality that's been unlocked already or discovered already that is being suppressed from the public, because one, it would put like maybe a bunch of technology would just be completely useless afterwards, you know, because we would have this different understanding of how things work. So I don't know, because it kind of also reminds me of Tesla's story of like, okay, they demonized AC because it would put Edison out of business, and so they said it was dangerous and all this other stuff. And now they're kind of doing the same thing about this. But you look at these videos of like frequencies and tones and sounds changing and manipulating water and all these like just weird, like there's something about the universe we still don't understand. Like I feel like we could, the way we look at things, or like the way we understand things could be drastically, you know, altered if maybe we learned some of these ancient wisdom from our ancestors. So yeah, this is all super fascinating. And you know, anybody want to add to my long rant?
I recommend you go watch Thrive 2. Thrive 1 is just about how the world is run by bankers and stuff like that. But Thrive 2 goes into everything you're talking about. And I was looking as you're talking at Malcolm's Twitter, and he have the same spiral thing, like the Earth is like a donut energy. And yeah, they go deep into that stuff. So yeah.
Toroidal field.
Yeah, so if people want to look into that, so yeah, Thrive 2. It's a great documentary.
You don't think that there's somebody that knows this already out there somewhere that's hiding it or has it in secret?
Well, I don't know if you guys know the was it Generation Z podcast, and he's been on my show a few times. He's also on the Union of the Unwanted. Last time I had him on, we talked about exactly this.
I had him too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ronnie. He was also on Enlighten Me with Ronnie podcast. So definitely check out those 2 interviews. And I don't know if he told the same story on your show, Ronnie, but he talked about how, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like math has always been my weakest subject growing up. So like he had a bunch of math problems and shit written down, and I mean it could be complete, made up, and I wouldn't know any better. But did he tell you, Ronnie, about how he was messing around with like anti-gravity and how basically he got somebody's attention and they came to his house?
Yeah, and he was like talking about like you bend space and time something, and then I showed him the trailer for Drive 2, and he said, "Yeah, that's basically it." And I was like, "Okay." So
yeah, and
he's like, who was it that said he's NDA Dave? So it's difficult to talk to, but yeah, he's interesting.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't, if you don't know who we're talking about, it's Dave Zed from the Generation Z podcast, and he was recently on Ronnie's show and a episode of Ripple Effect podcast. So definitely check that out. And when he talked about this on the Union of the Unwanted, I don't know if you remember this, but around the same time he was on Ripple Effect podcast, he was on the Union of the Unwanted, and he brought this up, and there's a few other people on the call that said that they've either heard reports of, or they were basically agreeing with him, this idea that there's sensors, there's some satellites or sensors or some way they know if people have figured out or messed around with technology, exploring this anti-gravity or time and space, whatever, and then basically they come to your house, like it's like Men in Black or whatever. So it's interesting because it's like if the government, and you go back to like the cult and you look at like Hitler and his intriguement with lost knowledge and it just and then you go down to different rabbit holes of secret societies and some of the old scriptures and stuff that they talk about and like I said, all this lost knowledge and ancient wisdom, it's possible without a doubt. So it's I know it seems hard to believe, like, oh yeah, Dave Zed just whatever, but it's not impossible. I mean, most people aren't really diving deep into this, and you get somebody like Dave Zed who's open-minded, who is obviously very intelligent. Maybe he can discover something that or rediscover something that has been lost throughout time. So it's it's all super fascinating, and I don't know why, but I have severe ADD in regards to like topics. Like I get intrigued with something, then I move on to something else. But this topic has gotten my attention recently. It's just like and then when you look at all the UFO stuff, and it's like, okay, is the UFO stuff a example of one, I mean, it could be a complete psyop, but if it's not a psyop, and if there is something that they're now admitting to, is it some other country's technology that has already broken these laws of time and gravity and all these things? Is it our technology, and they're kind of like easing our way into telling us like, hey, this stuff exists? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's all super confusing, and there's obviously way more questions than there are answers. And I don't really have a strong opinion on it yet. I'm kind of like taking a back seat and like, on like most stories, I'm taking a back seat and I like to kind of analyze things and wait and see where everything goes and gather as much information and perspective as I can. But yeah, it just, to me, it's super fascinating because I've always had this feeling that our understanding of the world is it could be completely incorrect, or it could be drastically changed if with one discovery or another. So it's all very fascinating.
Yeah, before he came on my podcast, he sent me a video and a few picture of the stuff that he's been building, and I'm like you, I don't know too much. So I just saw some pictures and a short video, and I'm like, maybe it's something, because when you put two magnets, they're gonna push away, or depending on how you turn them. But so I don't know if that's anti-gravity, or you just have strong magnets and you put another magnet over it and it flies away. I don't know. Is that like a big breakthrough? I don't know. And the pictures I got, I didn't really understand what I was looking at. So I couldn't, even if I wanted, I couldn't like say what he was building because I didn't understand them. And the pictures was on like a time. After I watched them, they went away. So I can't pick them up again. So I can't show you guys.
Sorry, can I jump in then? Because just double back to the Graham Hancock thing. Ricky, if you contact Charlie Robinson, because I know he's got an in possibly with Graham Hancock, because I was talking to him the other day about that. The secret technology thing can be simplified right down to the fact that if they were to suddenly give us free energy, can you imagine how many people would suddenly be unemployed throughout the world? I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of people, probably, like just suddenly guys that repair cables, people that sit in call centers dealing with your issues. It's an economical collapse if free energy was suddenly made available. And I think that in itself is a conspiracy where they need to slow release that, or possibly keep that under wraps, because it's kind of an economic, we all know fiat currencies are nonsense, but at the moment it actually keeps the chaos from evolving. Yeah, so that there's that to consider. We think of this utopian society where we say, oh, if we had free energy, we could do this, do that. But if that was to suddenly drop on us tomorrow, I think there would be a period of complete and utter carnage where people were suddenly like at a loss. Well, I don't have to go to work today. What do I do? It would just be madness. And maybe, just maybe, that's why it's kind of being contained and maybe slow released.
This information, which was a lie. I think that could have swung the election to Donald Trump's way.
That background noise coming from me, or is it?
Cancel culture working in many invidious ways.
Somebody listening? Is that you, Jeff? Somebody? I'm gonna mute everybody just to figure out who it might be. But obviously, if you guys want to talk, feel free to unmute. But I was gonna show you guys, the video which Ronnie also found. Ronnie's my Jamie tonight. He's every time I talk about something, he's bringing it up for me. But this is if you guys are looking for his Twitter account, this is Malcolm Bendel. Actually, he has a couple more followers than last time I remembered, so maybe he's picking up a little bit of steam. But this is him at the studio, and this is January 28th. So you're talking about, almost a month ago. This guy was on the road in studio. He's there with Randall, which is crazy to think. Like, Randall's a pretty smart guy, and you can obviously see that Rogan respects Randall and his opinions and Graham Hancock's opinions. So the fact that this guy came in and this has 33,000 views. Or the post does. The video has 10,000, but still a lot. And I don't know. This is, it's funny. And I've even looked for interviews with this guy, Malcolm Bendel, since then, because I was curious if I could find. Oh, look, Deep State, Steve Sher. He's been on a show before. oil man Malcolm Bendel, company named in Panama Papers. Yes, I do remember somebody sent me this too. This is that he was they talked about him in the Panama Papers, but that just means that he doesn't like to pay taxes. It doesn't mean that he necessarily is full of shit in regards to his scientific discoveries. He's like every billionaire, like they don't want to pay taxes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't understand what that means in regards to, I guess if he's credible or not credible, in my opinion, like that doesn't really say much. So yeah, this is very fascinating. I know also Josh from World Alternative Media, who's also been on the Union of the Unwanted a bunch, and he's also been on my show. He just had Jimmy Corsetti on, and I actually reached out to Josh. And I'm like, hey, I've tried to reach out to Jimmy a bunch, and I've helped Josh with getting guests in the past. So I'm like, hey, you mind, returning the favor, and maybe you can help me with getting Jimmy on. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'll bring it up to him. He's like, he knows that he's super private and he doesn't go on a lot of shows. But I don't know if it's because he's worried about backlash or somebody who's gonna maybe isn't a full believer in these possibilities. But yeah, this story, this is what happens with conspiracies, right? The less we know, the more intrigued we are about it. And like I find myself becoming more intrigued with it because there's such little information about all this. There's very little information about this Malcolm guy. To my knowledge, he hasn't done any interviews on podcasts that I'm aware of. Nothing. I looked and I couldn't find. I even looked at, typically when I'm looking for stuff and I'm like, okay, well, YouTube might not have it, but YouTube censors a lot of people. So there's a lot of people in the alternative media community that might be intrigued with this, that are now maybe exclusively on Rumble or these other platforms. So I searched for his name on Rumble. I searched for his name on Rockfin. I searched for his name on BitChute, and I couldn't really find much information, if any, on this guy. So this is, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because like Rob said, of course they would want to suppress this. I mean, look at all these other technologies, like, you watch the documentary Pump, right? And I've had one of the automotive engineers on my show, John Brackett, a phenomenal podcast that we talked about synthetic oil or synthetic gas, and how and I don't know if it was the Germans or somebody who figured it out, but like all these alternative fuel sources that were suppressed, how ethanol has been suppressed, and Henry Ford said it was the future of fuel because anything that could ferment, basically anything that can ferment, you can make ethanol out of. So it'd be much easier to get ethanol than it would for diesel fuel or gas, and all these things, like gas hole that and Pump talk about how the diesel engine was originally designed to run off vegetable oil and peanut oil, and then they completely don't talk about that anymore. And then you look at like the light bulb conspiracy. There's a great, I think the full title of the documentary was like the light bulb conspiracy, planned obsolescence, or maybe I'm saying that in reverse, but something along that and those lines. And I think you could still find it on YouTube or some of the video platforms, but it showed all these technologies that have been suppressed, including the light bulbs, right? People know about the light bulb conspiracy, how they were lasting a long time. And then in time, they started, all the light bulb manufacturers got together, all the companies, and said, hey, we're going to lose profit if they keep lasting so long. So let's little by little bring their life of these light bulbs down. And I think in the light bulb conspiracy documentary, there was actually a light bulb in New York. I don't know if it was a fire station or somewhere. I don't recall, because some of these documentaries I haven't seen in a long time. And
it's a fire station. Yeah,
it was a fire station. Yeah, where they like turn it on. It's been like burning for I forget how many years, and they like celebrated. I don't know if it was in New Jersey or New York or wherever, but it was it was fascinating. It was like this bulb that's like this old bulb that is still burning, and it just so my point is, like, there's all these examples of suppressed technology. The documentary Who Killed Electric Car, about I think it was called the EV1, the Chevy very popular electric car in the 90s that eventually for some reason they bought them all back and crushed them and didn't say anything or didn't really give an explanation, and people really liked the car. And then you look at like the trolley car conspiracy when like DuPont and Firestone and all GM and all these companies created a front company, bought all of these trolley cars that were gaining popularity in the West Coast, bought all the trolley cars, crushed them, and then replaced them with PVTA buses. So like there's all these examples of all this stuff, and all these things only back Rob's his theory, which I think I absolutely subscribe to, this idea that it would, if there was some way of creating free energy like Nikolai Tesla was trying to do with his towers, and believe that you could take electricity from the air or the I don't know, from space or whatever, and then bring it down, use the earth as a conductor, and then basically plug something into the ground and get energy. That would be a threat to a lot of industries, and it's no different than looking at it from like a medical standpoint of like, imagine if somebody's like, I have a pill, or or even better, I have a plant or a tea or a potion or some sort that cures cancer. Like, we know they suppress that stuff. They would suppress that 100%. So they would do the same thing with if you had some alternative energy that would give everybody free energy or cheaper energy or something like that. So it's all fascinating. Anybody have any comments on any of this?
The cancer cure you're talking about is RSO, Rick Simpson oil.
Yeah, there's the Rife machine as well. But going back to free energy, during the Second World War, farmers in the UK used to strap basically wood burning boilers to the side of vehicles to use wood off gassing to power their vehicles because they couldn't get fuel. So we have technology that would do it. It's whether they want it released or not. That's the big question. But yeah, I mean, anyone listening here, I'm sure most people will be familiar with, I'm going to say Randall Rife, but the Rife machine that basically cured a lot of stuff using sound waves.
I think Higher Side Chat has an episode about that, like 1 or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, and back to the anti-gravity, there's a YouTube channel called Good Times for All. And he's done some experiments with helium balloons, and all he's done is increased or decreased the positive and negative charge on a helium balloon and made it go up and down. So the electric universe theory is very, very much out there. Is gravity what they say gravity is, or is gravity just nothing more than a strong or negative polarity that causes a downward force? And then we go straight into pole shift and the Chinese balloon thing, which I think is fascinating, where there was an article about the Earth core slowing down. And I'm still in the, I'm kind of up and down with this. I've got this feeling that when they say pole shift, I don't think it means a geographical pole shift. I think they're talking more of a negative positive pole shift, and things that should be floating in the upper atmospheres are suddenly now being decharged and now sinking. And the last thing the government needs everyone to see is thousands upon thousands of satellites that are on balloons sinking, and they are now scrambling to blast them out of the sky and pretend they're something else. I mean, there's a theory for you.
I like that theory.
And that YouTube channel is called Good Times for All. Did you say Pornhub or YouTube? Good Times for All.
It's YouTube. Good Times, and then I think it's the number 4 for all. I can find it and send it to you. But yeah, he's done some fantastic stuff with. He's semi-connected with Crow 777. With he was doing some sun experiments where he was looking through a camera and then realized he was seeing a second sun, and he proved it was another light source, via the filters he was using, and like disproved lens flare and stuff. But interesting. But I think the whole positive negative electric universe theory is definitely on the table. That needs to be looked at. And again, you only have to look at spiders that can, what do they call that? Blooming, when they release silk and then pick up a negative charge or a positive charge, whichever way around it is, and then they basically fly places. Do you know what I mean? So I think the electrical potential of our atmosphere is very underestimated in its potential, pun intended, its potential to, give us energy.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, I find it super funny about this and the balloons, because the flat earthers, they've been screaming about the balloons. Everything is balloons, there's balloons all around us, and now we're shooting down balloons. I'm like, maybe they actually knew something. They're not wrong on everything. It's balloons all around.
Well,
balloons for everyone.
It makes you almost give the flat earthers a little bit more credibility, because it's like, okay, if there's that much pushback, and if you're censoring flat earthers the same way you're censoring a Randall Carlson or a Graham Hancock or a Rupert Sheldrake or a Tom Cowan, and you're calling these people pseudoscience because they have a different interpretation of reality in the world around us, then to me it's like, okay, it could be nothing, or it could mean that they're closer to some type of truth and understanding than we think. And so it's, and that's kind of been, that's the thing with the flat earth movement. That was always, to me, it was always like the why, like, okay, why would you suppress this? And then you think about like, okay, would it open a door? Would it open a door to rethinking everything, right? So like something like alternative energy, or rediscovering some old understanding of energy, or whatever, sounds, waves, frequencies, maybe it would make those things seem much more realistic, because we just found out that everything else was a lie, right? So it's like, I don't know if that could be a justification for the quickly kind of poo-pooing and kind of dismissing the flat earth thing. Because to me, it's like everything's a theory. Like I'm open to everything, so it's like, why would I disregard the flat earth theory of everything and then believe somebody else's theory on everything? Like these are all theories. We can't really, like, Rob brought up gravity. Gravity is a perfect example. Like, I can prove that something is pulling this thing to the ground. If I drop my phone, if I drop a bottle of water, it goes towards the ground. But I can't prove what is actually doing it, right? Like, I can just come up with these ideas and these theories, and I remember having Massimo, who did 9/11 and New Pearl Harbor. Before I ran into that documentary, I remember watching his documentary. I think it was called Cancer Cures. And it had, I think it was Forbidden Cancer Cures, maybe was the full title. And it had all these people throughout history that had success with curing cancer. And it would talk to people who were directly involved and all this stuff. And all these people were considered pseudoscience, or they would try to shut them down or whatever. And a lot of these things made you rethink medicine, made you rethink the human body, and made you rethink cancer. I mean, look at autism, right? There was I don't know if you guys saw the recent High Wire show, but he had that kid, I think was his name Jimmy, maybe, and he was a part of the documentary Speller, the new documentary Spellers, with actually Jennifer McCarthy and her Don Wahlberg. I forget which Wahlberg she's with. They're a part of helping create this new documentary, and what they're finding out, or what they discovered, and what they think, this theory on autism, that it's not a mental issue, it's a mechanical issue. So what they're basically, they're looking at it as they're stroke victims who cognitively are there, but mechanically can't get their thoughts and feelings out. So there was this kid, Jimmy. I feel guilty not remembering his name, but I think it was Jimmy or Jamie. I don't know. I'll look it up. And But if you look up the documentary Spellers, and now I'm second guessing if that's even the name of the documentary. I'm having a rough time going into my memory bank today. But either way, I'm gonna look this stuff up to get this right. But my point is, like, what's really fascinating is that this one father who sparked all this. He basically got the alphabet and got his child to point at letters and basically tell his father what he thinks and his thoughts and respond to like questions. And it took a long time, a lot of hours or whatever. And then eventually now he's good enough where he can actually type it on a keyboard. You ask him something, he can type his response on a keyboard. So he went from thinking his child cognitively was like a ghost, like was looking through him, like some severe autistic kids where it almost seems like cognitively they're not there at all, like you can't connect with them, to finding out that there was a person inside that body that mechanically couldn't get his thoughts and emotions and these things out, but he was in there and he found a way to tap into that. And and he's basically saying that this, and there's all these parents are having success with this therapy, this method. And basically he's like coming to the conclusion that like it might have not been a cognitive thing, but it's a mechanical thing. Like I was saying, like I think they used the example like a stroke victim, like you're almost trapped inside this body, but you're cognitively there. It kind of reminds me of, remember that song by One or by Metallica, One, where anybody know what I'm talking about? One, it's like one of the most
darkness imprisoning me, all that I see, absolute horror. I cannot live, I cannot die.
Exactly. And it was one of my favorite Metallica songs of all time, still one of the best Metallica songs of all time. But there's that, if you watch the music video, right, there's that guy who has his face covered and he's like he's tied down. And I remember like looking into like, what is the song about specifically? And I think it was about some guy who's trapped in his body and couldn't communicate. And it kind of reminds me of what like these autistic kids could be. And the father was talking about like how excited he was to know that now he can communicate with his kid and that there was somebody in there. And like he also talked about, which pulled in my heartstrings, he talked about how he didn't realize, because he didn't get any feedback, he couldn't get any feedback at the time using the methods that traditional methods that they use to try to increase the intelligence of autistic kids. But he didn't realize how much his child adored him and loved his family and appreciated his family, and now his son can get that message across to him. And you think about it, like how much work having a child on the spectrum is, how much effort and time and energy goes into that. And to not get any feedback can be discouraging. It can be heartbreaking. And for parents to be able to get some feedback and actually almost feel like you're being introduced to who your child really is, because they're not this blank stare, emotionless, cognitively not there, just flesh and bones, but there's a person and they're just struggling to communicate to you. But my point of bringing this all up is the fact that like that's another perfect example of rethinking something that we possibly could have gotten completely wrong, and in regards to our opinions on autism. Anyway.
Go ahead, guys. I've been speaking all night.
Yeah, no. When you were relaying that story, I'll tell you what came to my mind, and you have to be a certain age to get this. But do you remember the musical Tommy? Pinball Wizard.
I feel like I do. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, you'll have to, yeah. Maybe I'm older than the rest of you. So if you look into that, starring Elton John and the guy from The Who, Roger Daltrey. I'm going to say, am I right saying Roger Daltrey?
The Who. So I know The Who had a badass drummer. I don't know all their names though.
That was Mickey Moon. If I'm having one of those nights where my brain's just saying yeah, you're not, you should be in bed by now, sleeping. What are you doing? So, but yeah, the musical Tommy was about a deaf, dumb, and blind child that was good at pinball. But I think that might be an analogy, like you say, I mean, back then that was, I'm going to say the 70s that was done, when autism wasn't a thing. But now it is. And like you say, I think you make a very, very valid point that maybe we're looking at it at a completely different, looking at it from the wrong angle, when we should be, exploring other opportunities, which echoes everything I think everything all conspiracy theorists say about everything. Let's, don't just believe the narrative, think outside the block and say to yourself, what if? And if someone says what if and you shut them down, then you yourself are part of the problem. That I kind of get that a lot at the moment. If you can't think maybe things are different, then you're part of the status quo, and nothing will change because everyone thinks that, it's like let's vote another government in because it'll be different. It won't be different because it's still the government. It's left, right. It's the same bird with the, different wings. It's sometimes it's heartbreaking, but sometimes it is what it is. And we have to kind of just chip away at it. And I heard a very good analogy today, on a podcast about brush fires, and people saying, sometimes kindling just, we need to light these small fires to enable the rest of the bush to dry out, because eventually when you light that small bushfire, it'll catch, and then we'll get that movement that we need.
Sam Tripoli's tinfoil hat last episode.
Thank you very much. Yep, that would be it.
Which Sam Tripoli episode?
It's the last one, but the Kindle story he's talking about is in the end. It was a good analogy, yeah, about you need to keep talking to people. So when you talk to people, you put Kindle like for the fires, and when you stop talking, it gets wet and moist, and you have to keep talking. So once you actually light the fire, it's gonna
it's the same
burning.
analogy when we say that you have to just plant the seed and then walk away and let it grow, but this is a bit more dynamic. If you're trying to light a fire, like a wet fire, sometimes you have to light it 3 or 4 times before the kindling dries, and then when the kindling catches, then the fire catches, and then you have the fire. That was the analogy he was pushing, but it's a lot more dynamic than just planting a seed and walking away and then waiting 5 years for that to grow. The analogy he was trying to push there, I think, was if more and more people keep fueling the fire, eventually the fire will be big enough to be noticed. I think. Would you agree, Ronnie?
Yeah, for sure. And you could do it with Ricky's podcast. If you just put an S in the end, like ripple effects, you keep throwing stones to get the ripple effect to continue, never stop. So, yeah, continue talking with people, and hopefully at some point we get a big enough mass to actually understand what's going on with everything. Even though nobody can understand everything, that's I'm realizing. Nowadays, I'm getting stupid every day because I'm listening to too much, so I can't handle the information, so I don't know what to do. I need a bigger brain. If you can help me with that somehow.
Yeah, I listen to all the podcasts at double speed, so that's why I sometimes get a bit confused. But the information's there.
Yeah, I know a few people who do that. I've attempted to do it, but I have a hard enough time comprehending things at regular speed. So I'm like, if you speed it up, it just makes me more confused. So it can get difficult. And and I also understand Ronnie's issue with like you sometimes you consume so much information that you don't even have time to dissect it and reflect about it and ponder on it and really analyze it. And that can be an issue too. Like that's why I like to sometimes, like if a topic sparks my curiosity, I like to kind of focus on that for a little bit and really just like, okay, let me kind of focus on this. I don't need to also know what's going on with current events. I also don't need to know what's going on with geopolitical issues. I don't, it's like, okay, I'm intrigued with this. If it's, again, if it's this exact topic, maybe I go back and re-listen to some interviews with Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Maybe I watch Graham Hancock's series, whatever it's called, Ancient Apocalypse, and you just kind of dive deep into this one topic, and then that way you can, all the information is kind of fresh in your head. But yeah, there is a little bit of even with myself, like I constantly have the issue of information overload, where I feel like I'm consuming so much information and I'm not keeping any of it. Like it's just like it's too much to digest. What podcasts are you guys listening to, or what is there any specific podcasts or topics that you guys have been diving into recently?
Can I just double back on the information overload and just break that down for you, just like from my own personal experience? Because I treat the like I say, I listen to stuff like double speed, and okay, to answer your question, I listen to obviously yourself, Charlie Robinson, Macroaggressions, Tinfoil Hat, Broken Simulation, The Deep Share, False Reality Check, so there's Deep Share, and what's the other one? The Great Deception podcast, off the top of my head, right? So you can kind of guess the kind of stuff I'm listening to. And although I listen to it at at high speed, and I don't necessarily remember it all, I equate that to being like a child, where like when I was a child, I did touch a hot stove and I burnt my fingers. I don't do that now. Yeah. As an adult, I've eaten pizza that's too hot and burnt the roof of my mouth. Don't do that anymore. I think if you take in enough information, as a child, you're taking in thousands and thousands of things, but somehow you retain it somewhere in your cognitive memory. So when you're walking around, like when I walk around, I look left and right before I cross the road. It's just instinctive. I just double check what I'm doing because it's there. It's like the dynamic risk assessment of life. When you take in enough information, though you think you're not absorbing it because you're forgetting it, somewhere in the back of your mind, when a news article comes up and it says, for example, so-and-so, age 33, your brain goes, oh, yes, 33. Recognize that pattern. It's all there. Sometimes you don't know it's there, but I guarantee, Ricky, you don't go and put your hand on a hot stove. And it's not because you listen to it on a podcast. It's because you learned that a long time ago and it's just stuck in your mind.
That's a really good point. That is, I think sometimes you don't think it's seeping in, but even subconsciously, sometimes we're consuming the information, or it kind of reminds me of when you're having long discussions with people, and then all of a sudden they say something that sparks a memory that you thought was forgotten or you haven't recalled in a long time. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, why do I still remember this? So I think that without a doubt, that is possible, of just thinking that, the information's not being consumed, but it is. My thing, one thing that I've tried to do is understand what the information means for in regards to like how does it affect my worldview, and how does it affect just like the situation, like kind of look at things from the big picture, like, okay, for example, like Tom Cowan and his whole theory on water, like, okay, this is interesting. I don't need to know all the exact details. I don't need to recall the exact study, but it's fascinating, and this is like one more piece to maybe a puzzle. And then you kind of keep all these little puzzle pieces, and you might not be able to recall all the exact specific information, just like like how did I end up getting to the point where I question big pharma? Like there's probably a documentary I ran into, an article I ran into, and maybe I couldn't recall those things, but I'm like, okay, this is leading me in the direction that there's something more going on here. I need to rethink medicine. And then so you can kind of just take the lessons and remember the lessons that you learned from the information, and it's okay if you don't remember all the specific information itself. So I think that's, you know, one of those things too, where it's just like, you know, we can get so caught up in trying to memorize all the specific information. But, you know, like for example, if I watch Dope Sick, which is a great show, I hope people check it out, about the Oxycontin epidemic, then like I might not remember all the specific events. I might not remember all the specific ways they paid off the FDA or how they lied to the doctors or whatever. But at the end of the series, I know that the general thing that I learned was that without a doubt there was a pharmaceutical company that lied about the product, and it sparked this epidemic. And so, you know, I think sometimes those are the things that like stay with you, and you're like, okay, there's all these things that maybe I can't recall specifically, but they're all helping in regards to helping mold my worldview on this issue or just in general. So the rest of you guys, Greg, Ronnie, Jeff, you guys want to share any episodes or any shows, podcasts that really have been sparking your interest of late, or any topics that you've been really intrigued with?
Not so
Go
much.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, you talk. Yeah, I have talked all day, so talk. You go, Greg.
Well, I was just going to say to the topic at hand, trying to remember all this stuff. I watch so many of them that it's not so much trying to remember the details, as long as I can remember roughly where I heard it. So if I hear something in one of Ricky's podcasts, all I need to do is remember, I heard it in Ricky's, and then I can go back and look it up later. That's why I try to, as James Corbett say, take a copy of everything. Keep a copy of everything you hear. If you listen to something and you like it, download it. And then you can organize it. It's just a matter of remembering where you heard it and go back to it, because you'll never remember all the details if you're taking in a lot of information.
Yeah, and downloading, it's funny because my podcast, the audio, I still get way more downloads than I get plays. And me as a podcast listener, I don't really download a whole lot of episodes. I usually stream them. I just play it because typically I'm either at home or I'm somewhere where I have free Wi-Fi or whatever. So I'm not really worried about like using up data. Plus, it's just audio, so it doesn't use a whole lot of data. But I'm curious if the reason why plays have never really come close to catching up to the downloads is because of that, Greg. Because people are like, well, you know what? Let me save this. Let me archive this episode. That way, if I ever want to go back to it, if it ever gets censored or whatever, I'll have a copy of it somewhere. So, you know, obviously, like you said, like James Corbett's a perfect example. He also is a big fan of open source, and that's why I always talk about being open source, because I believe that, you know, it's important to get this information out there regardless where you get it. And if that means like somebody's uploading my shows onto different platforms, that's okay. I mean, if I go on BitChute, Rumble, some of these alternative platforms, I will find episodes I've done on channels that aren't mine, and I'm okay with that, because I don't really care where people hear it. So yeah, without a doubt. And Jeff, go ahead, Greg.
I was gonna say, I'm gotta be one of the very minority. I always go for the video download as opposed to the audio, because the video part helps me remember where I've got to go. So if I heard it on your show, I associate the video of you or the picture of you with that fact that I'm trying to remember. And that's how I know to go to your archive and look it up there, and I'll quickly find it. I always do. But yeah, I'm one of the guys. I want the video, even if it's just us sitting here looking at each other. The video helps me remember more than the audio.
Yeah, I've always been more of a visual person myself, and I think that's why with documentaries, it always seemed to be almost easier for myself to consume information. And because I'm seeing it, I'm seeing people talk about it. They're maybe showing slides or whatever it may be. But the other thing, like for people who are listening, if they haven't downloaded the Rumble app is perfect, because if you listen to the video or if you watch the video, or if you just want to listen to the audio, the cool thing about the Rumble app, it gives you the capabilities that only YouTube Premium gives you. So YouTube Premium, you can actually play videos in the background. So in other words, you can close the screen, you can do other things on your phone, and if you have the app closed, it's basically running as just audio, and then when you go back into the app, the video's still playing. Well, Rumble does that for free. You can do that with Rumble. That's why a lot of times I find myself migrating towards Rumble a little more. Rockfin does it too, but I hate to say it, the Rumble apps, and it probably a lot of it's because of the huge amount of investments that have gone into Rumble, but the Rumble app seems to be more flawless than the Rockfin app at the moment. But the Rockfin app does do the same thing, where if you're playing the video, you can just close the app and the audio is still playing. So if for example, it's happened with me where like I'm watching a video, then I'm like, oh, now I want to listen to this in my car or in my truck on the drive to work or wherever, and I instead of me opening up the audio version of it on another app, on Podcast Addict or Spotify or whatever, I can just play it on Rumble, and then when I get in my car, I just turn off my screen on my phone, and it's still playing, or I can even close the app and it's still playing in the background. So it's it is a nice way of being able to do both. If you want to listen to the audio, you can listen to it on Rockfin or Rumble. Then if you're like, okay, they're talking about something, or I want to put a face to this voice, let me open the app, and there you are. You can watch it. So, and the other thing too about the videos, which I have told some people, because anybody who's complaining about the long intros, is if you watch the video in the credits right in the beginning, I tell you where you can fast forward to skip the intros if anybody wants to do that. But yeah, I mean, if I have the option, I prefer the video too. I'm also attempting to figure out how I can get my videos on Spotify, because I know a lot of people listen to me on Spotify, but I don't think it's open to the public yet. And I recently started looking into it, and I think now they are much more flexible and opened to podcasters putting their videos on Spotify. Because right now I know like the Patrick Bet David show, you can watch it and listen to it on Spotify. Obviously the Rogan podcast, but there's still a lot of podcasts that that they haven't given them access to uploading videos. So that's another thing. And I figured the more places the better, so but yeah, so if you use the Rumble app or the Rockfin app, and these apps are free, and you can get all my content on these apps for free. You can basically use it as a podcast audio app or a video app. So that's kind of cool too. And the other thing too is like, and I said this on my last episode with I think Brian Festa in the intro, about how like, back in the day, I used to watch a lot of content on YouTube. So late at night, I couldn't sleep. I'm on YouTube. I'm looking at channels that I typically watch, and I'll fall asleep watching some YouTuber that I'm a fan of or whatever. And now there's no more YouTubers that I'm a fan of. There's everybody that's good isn't on YouTube anymore. They've been kicked off. They've been censored. And if you still are on there, like a Tim Pool or whoever, you're self-censoring yourself a lot, at least for the content on YouTube. So now what I've been doing is even though it's a little bit more of a step, I just go to rumble.com, or I think I've been using Rumble because I think it's a little faster in a web browser. I go on my smart TV or on my Fire Stick, go to a web browser. If it doesn't have a web browser, just download one in the App Store. You can find one, and you go to rumble.com. Go to all your favorite channels that you like. Go to the Ripple Effect podcast. Go to Grand Theft World. Go to, Ronnie. I think, are you on Rumble? I believe you probably are, right? And
yeah, I have linked my YouTube, so it automatically goes up also on Rumble.
Awesome, yeah. So, you go to whatever your favorite channels are, and you can bookmark it. And then what I do, like for example, tonight, if I'm looking for something to watch late at night, I'll go to my web browser, go to Rumble, then I'll go to all my bookmarks, and James Corbett will be there, the High Wire will be there, all these Grand Theft World, And then I'll just pick something, and then it'll load, and it, I don't have to type in the whole URL. I don't have to do, the nice thing about Rumble and Rockfin and a lot of these alternative channels, video channels, is the URLs for the general website is pretty simple, so it's not really time consuming. But then once you get there and you bookmark it, it's easy to get to. You go to your bookmarks, and boom, there's my I can see what's new on James Corbett's Rumble channel. And for some reason, out of all of them, it does seem like Rumble seems to work with less issues, because I know some of the web browsers, if you do it this way, there's some lag and it takes some time to load, and especially if it's Grand Theft World, because each episode's like 24 hours. But it's, it seems to be faster when you're loading it on Rumble. So give it a try and get in the habit of doing that. So instead of, watching things on TV or watching things on YouTube, you can get, all the alternative content you used to love on YouTube, and get stuff that's a little bit more thought provoking. So, that's a great way of watching the Ripple Effect podcast. If you're interested in watching these videos, and really just watching anybody, Russell Brand is on Rumble, and I think a lot of his stuff that is exclusively on Rumble is stuff that's a little bit more conspiratorial and whatnot. A lot of these people are self-censoring. So the people, like I said, Tim Pool and Russell Brands, and people who are still on YouTube, you're not going to get their full perspectives or all the good stuff. A lot of that stuff is going to be saved for these alternative platforms. So has any of you guys done that? Greg, where are you watching the Ripple Effect podcast? Is there a website or platform that you prefer?
I go to Rockfin.
Rockfin?
Yeah. And Whitney Webb's on there, and a bunch of others.
Yeah. Well, you know what turned people off initially? I think initially they would ask for your email address, even though you didn't have to pay for anything. I think they were just, they would ask for an email address to log in, and people assume like, oh, if I have to give them my email address, maybe they're charging me or whatever. Or they assumed that like there wasn't a whole lot of free content, because there's, why would there be a monthly fee if there wasn't a bunch of free content? But I think people are starting to understand that, like, hey, the premium stuff, a lot of people just put some premium stuff on the Rockfin channel just to help make a little bit extra money, because you're putting out all this free content, and at least that way I can try to, support myself if you are trying to do this full time. So, but yeah, all my stuff is free on Rockfin. Like you said, Whitney Webb, Jimmy Dore's on there, The Last American Vagabond's on there. Obviously, all Sam Tripoli's stuff, Charlie Robinson. Midnight Mike isn't on there yet, but I'm sure eventually he'll have to go on there as the YouTube. I don't know if he's still on YouTube or if he's using something else to stream. What would Ronnie? Do you know? Anybody know where? I should know this. He's my co-host.
Midnight Mike is on Twitch, and one more thing, they're doing 2 streams, I know, but if I've seen them live a few times, and that's on Twitch, OBDM pod, twitch.tv/OBDM pod.
Yeah, because I haven't watched his show live in a long time, so I didn't know where he was streaming it. I listened to RSS feed or have the RSS feed in Podcast Addict, but I haven't watched it live. I know it was, like you said, yeah, it was Twitch. I think maybe D Live he was using for a little bit, but he should come over to Rockfin, because people love live streaming, and Rockfin's a great way to monetize if you want, because I like the fact that if somebody's listening to an episode, and if they're, enjoying it, they can tip that specific episode. And you get basically get some feedback, like, oh shit, somebody likes this episode enough to tip it. That means like, okay, either this topic's really interesting, or I did a good job on the show, or whatever. The only bad thing about Rockfin is that there's thumbs down, and there's a lot of assholes on Rockfin who just give every like show. I'll be watching AM Wake Up with Pasta and Steve, and like they literally haven't even started streaming yet. They already have a thumbs down. I'm like, who's doing this? I'm like, sometimes I'm in the chat. I'm like, guys, if you're giving the show a thumbs down, just go watch something else. Like, I can't even remember like giving anything a thumbs down ever. You know, maybe if it was like some like super propaganda, you know, some video with Dave or Dr. Hotez or something like that, I might have given a thumbs.
I've done it to World Economic Forums. I've followed them. I see them there live. I just jump in, thumbs down, and go out. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I probably have done something like that also, but I haven't given somebody a thumbs down who like, okay, you're on my team, you're trying to, you know, put out decent content, but maybe I disagree with you on something, or maybe, you know, like you're one of the good guys, but maybe I disagree with you, or I don't like the way you produce your show or whatever. Like, I'm never going to give you a thumbs down for that. If I give you a thumbs down, it's because, like you said, you're a shithead, and you know, and I just want to let you know that you're a shithead by giving you a thumbs down. But YouTube got rid of those anyways. Now, you know, Rockfin still has them, but you can't make everybody happy. But it is funny how Rockfin's it's such a world of alternative media. Like, there's not obviously like many mainstream media channels on there. I don't think, like people who are kind of tiptoeing the line between alternative and mainstream. So like, you figure anybody who's on that platform must enjoy alternative media. So I don't know who's giving everybody a thumbs down. I know, like, I get at least one or two like each video, like immediately. I think the Brian Festa podcast, the video, I think it's uploaded already today, and I'm pretty sure like 2 seconds after it's uploaded, before anybody gets through the whole thing or even gets through the intro, it'll have a thumbs down. So it's like, I don't know who's hanging out doing this.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We found out who it was. It was Rob this whole time. After that,
I'm pretty sure it's the most craziest people in our community, because I was listening to you had his name here, the British guy that's big on YouTube. Yeah, Russell Brand. And I actually did watch on Rumble, and I was reading the chat just for like, what is the chat saying? And it was so racist, even I was like, holy shit. Then I just put full screen and listened to him. I was like, that's crazy. So I was like, I'm guessing he gets thumbs down because he's like, it's the Jews, and Russell is like talking about something else and doesn't give a fuck about the Jews. So I would guess it's something like that.
Well, the issue I have with the thumbs down, thumbs up in the comments are, it's so easy to automate something, to manipulate it in a certain direction, whether it's thumbs up or some thumbs down, that to me, those things don't mean anything. Tipping on Rockfin, that's real people saying, yeah, I like this, because now they have to dip into their pocketbook. Anybody can click or make a bot to click the thumbs down, but actually get a credit card and tip, now you've got a real thing about whether it's good or bad.
Can I ask about that, by the way? Can you tell me, Ricky, how much do you get if I tip you like $5? I'm already paying, like, because I'm here, but if I would do it, how much do you get? Can you say?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm so bad. I really should know this stuff. I think I can go. I barely ever look at it because I don't make a whole lot off Rockfin, and they only update your account. I don't know if it's every month or whatever. Then your wallet will get updated with like a certain amount of raise, and I don't know, you know, how that translates. I think Rockfin, obviously there is a small fee. I'm not sure exactly what the fee is. I don't think it's significant though. And then it's just a matter of like the value of the Ray token at the moment, you know. So you know, to me, even when Rockfin first started, I kind of like the idea of like the community all being invested in the growth of it, because it's like, okay, the more people from alternative media that come onto the platform, you know, the better, because and then more people who are watching, more people who are using the Ray token, the more the value goes up, and then we all win, right? So it's almost like working at a restaurant where like we share our tips at the end of the night. You know, we all have incentive in helping each other out, because it's like, okay, like if you're late to, if you're busy and the food's on the counter to bring to table 6, I'm gonna go help you out because I want table 6 to be happy because we're splitting our tips at the end of the night, compared to like where a restaurant where they don't split their tips, and then it's like, oh, I don't have anything to do, and I know that table's drinks are right there on the bar, but I'm not going to bring it over there because what incentive do I have to do that? So it's like I kind of like the idea of like creating this community where everybody had incentive and in the platform growing. I like that, but I never liked the idea of using crypto because it's like, okay, well, what if it crashes? What if as it goes up or down or whatever? It's like, what if by the time I cash out or by the time they send me the ray, if the value has gone down? So it's like, if, like you said, if you send me $5, is it not $5 by the time I get it because now the ray value has gone down? So it's like there's a lot. When I had Martin on, I try to get a understanding of it, and I've heard interviews with him and him explaining it, and I must say, I am still a bit confused about it all, and I want to believe that people more intelligent than me, maybe like Ryan or Jimmy or Ben Askren or anybody else who are on Rockfin, maybe has a better understanding of how crypto works and how the Ray token specifically works, and that they wouldn't be on the platform if they were getting royally screwed. So I kind of put my faith in that. But the reason why I support the platform is, one, in regards to like actual important information, they haven't censored anybody. Obviously, there's the Benjamin Owen story and that whole thing, but it's like, okay, they had an issue with like him being offensive, but they never censored anybody like, oh, this is corruption that I'm exposing. This is important information. And that type of stuff has never been censored. Like, nobody's censoring information because they have a different perspective. They're censoring basically what they thought was a little offensive. And that was the only time. And then Martin, the CEO, even took the time and had it in his heart to actually do a podcast with Owen Benjamin and talk about it. And which I thought, like, why would you have to do that? Like, that shows that you care enough to at least explore the idea that you could be wrong in the whole censoring thing. And Benjamin Owen, am I getting his name wrong? Owen Benjamin, and he's now on Rockfin too. So he eventually did end up going on Rockfin too. So
I think it's Owen before.
Yeah. So to me, like, that's one of the reasons why I still support them, and I'm a fan of the platform, because when shit hit the fan, when all these other platforms were being attacked, like they still let us have interviews on there with the doctors and do the union don't want and all this stuff, and never once have I had an issue with getting this information out there and having controversial people on my show, and nobody that I would call a truth seeker who's trying to spread alternative information. They've never been censored. So I really appreciate that. And also, when the Whitney Webb thing happened, where she had somebody steal a bunch of crypto from her, they went over and beyond in regards to helping her out with that too. And that she had some issues with somebody she was working with, steal a bunch of her money, her Ray tokens, and they did like a full investigation and really helped her out in any way they could. So it's yeah, I mean, to me, like, you have to appreciate those platforms. And when right now it's like it COVID behind us, it seems pretty easy to let alternative media creators on your platform, but they were really growing and letting us come on when all the other platforms were being censored, and they knew that they could potentially be attacked or shut down or sued or any of those things. So it's fascinating. But then you look at like the FXT or FTX story, and then like the whole just crypto, people rethinking, like, okay, is crypto being used as a scam, is whatever, it's like, I must say, it made me think, like, okay, is Ray token going to be like one of those things where it's just like, oh, there's no value in this, and all of a sudden it's just going to crash? And but I don't know. I mean, obviously, as long as there's a video platform that uses Ray tokens, it's gonna have some type of value. But I would prefer if it was like, okay, somebody tips me $2, I get $2 minus whatever the fee is for having the platform and doing the transaction and all that stuff. Because right now I don't know if that's what that is, because if the Ray value drops, am I getting a diminished version of those $2? Does that make sense? Because I'm trying to make sense of something I'm not sure how it works. So it is a bit confusing, but it's one of the few places you can still monetize. When you look at like Ryan and Whitney and Corbett and all these people who've been kicked off PayPal, Patreon, they've been kicked off all these places. Like, it's one of the few places where you can still, give your listeners and fans of your show a method of supporting the show in one way or another.
Yeah, I think what Ronnie was trying to get there was, if, for example, I give you $5, I want to think that you're getting $5, if not $4.95, and not 50 cents, and someone else is taking the rest of it. I think that was the question. Like, I mean, obviously you couldn't answer that because you like you say, it's a monthly thing and it's kind of bundled up, so it's hard to quantify how much you're getting. But for example, in Patreon, I mean, what's their fees? If I give you $5 in Patreon, what do you physically get?
I would also have to look at that.
I think Tim Pool went through this. He talked about 20% or something.
I don't know.
He was like, no.
I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe because it doesn't seem that high, because it's much smaller amounts of money for myself. So like, if it was 20%, it wouldn't be that much, because I'm dealing with, I think the most I've gone off Patreon was a couple $100. So it's like, okay, 20% of that, maybe I didn't even notice that it was 20%. When you're dealing with that,
do you see like specifics? Because I can say how much I give you and we can check. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see. If I go into, see, this is the thing with me, like Rockfin, Patreon, my merchandise store, like any methods I give in regards to ways of supporting the show, like, it exists, it's there, I set it up, then I just let it go. Like, I'm not one of those people that, like, I'm checking every single, because it's extra, so it helps me pay for bandwidth, storage, it helps me pay for a external hard drive or antivirus that I might need for my computer or whatever it may be, any expenses that goes into the podcast. But it's not enough where it's like, oh, I'm using it to pay my bills, because I couldn't afford to use it to pay my bills. So it's like, okay, this is a little extra money goes in this account, and then when I need something in regards to expense to the podcast, I can use that. I have something there so then I don't have to constantly, go into my own pocket to pay for this. So, most of these things, when I set it up, I'm much more intrigued and curious about, like, okay, what are the fees, all this stuff. And then once it's set up, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to use it, whatever it is, because I can't control, what the fees are. But it's, so I probably should have better answers for you guys, but unfortunately at the moment I don't. But it definitely will be something that hopefully the next Patreon podcast, I'll answer some of these questions for you guys, and I'll do some research and see exactly what the fees are. I mean, even with my merch store, like, the fees aren't bad with that. Like, it's basically like they give me a price on, like, okay, this is how much it takes to buy the material, print the material, and ship the material, and then you put whatever, how much more on top of that do you want to put? You'd put like 10%, or whatever. And that's what I did. I did like some little percentage on top of what they make or they need to for everything. Because that way I'm like, you know what, like, they're going through all the work. I already have the logos on there. I already have the website built and all that stuff. Anything that I can make, it's just, it's a plus. There's no reason to rate people with high prices, so that's kind of the way I look at it at the moment. Maybe if I was Tim Pool and I had all these employees and every penny mattered in regards to what I was making with the podcast because it's how I afford everything, then maybe I'd probably be much more just aware of all these fees and exactly what I'm making. But because again, it's a small podcast in regards to like expenses, and any little money helps. And I also don't mind going in my own pocket because I've been doing it since the beginning of the podcast. If I need something and I don't have the money coming in from the podcast, I'll just pay for it because I love the podcast and I love putting out these conversations. So, but I hopefully next time we all talk, I will have these answers for you. Ronnie, have you thought about going to Rockfin? Have you attempted yet?
I have not. I'm in between the black pills at the moment, so I'm taking this month off, and in March I will start. I'm going to talk to my family. Thinks I'm crazy guy. What the fuck is his name? About the Illuminati and stuff like that. Yeah, Mark Steves. Yeah. And because I'm following the San Tripoli method, if I'm black pill and don't believe in this, I'm not gonna talk to anybody. So I'm like in between podcasts or what do you want to call it? I'm so black pill because I have a guy that I'm working with, and I'm sure he's open-minded, kinda, but then again he's totally blue pill and believe everything the media says. So I'm like showing him a video of some political people saying something, and he turns it into the most naive thing I ever heard in my life. And I hear that every day. So I'm trying to stop to talk to him about it, but it's so fucking hard when you're like, here you have the Pfizer CEO, no, the Moderna. This example was the Moderna guy that said, yeah, we made the vaccine in 2019, and then we have to think about how we're gonna make even more in 2020 because we're going to have an epidemic. And I don't even remember it anymore, but he even made that to be some kind of, yeah, they probably didn't know, but they tried. I'm like, I fucking hate it so much. I hate it. So yeah, I'm trying my best to get back to the regular red pill moment. Yeah. So yeah, and we're gonna stop here. So go to Enlighten Me with Ronnie. I have some 36 episodes or something that I'm not black pilled on. Yeah, one episode that I'm black pilled on. So don't listen to that one. I didn't put that in the counter, so you will see it when you look at the names. The one with not my regular names, that's the black pilled one. The rest is interviews with people, and yeah.
What do you mean now with your regular name?
It's if you look at Enlighten Me with Ronnie, like 31, 32, and some guest name and something like that. And I have one podcast. It's just like Pfizer says they are making viruses and nobody cares or something like that. And there's somewhere black pill on that episode. I'm like showing the evidence, and I'm like, nobody is gonna give a shit anyway, so who gives a fuck? And yeah. So not the best mood that day.
We didn't even talk about that story, but that Project Veritas story is super fascinating too. I'm really intrigued with how little coverage, the fact that this guy had his biggest scoop, his biggest video, most viral video of all time, Project Veritas, and James O'Keefe, the founder, is going viral, biggest video, most popular video of all time. Then all of a sudden, the board of directors come up with all these issues that they have with him, and to remove him, and like nobody finds that, just interesting and maybe concerning, because now who influenced the board of directors to make that move? And obviously we've heard rumors of Pfizer getting involved and all this stuff. I know there's a James O'Keefe. Was there a video or message that he just released recently? I haven't got around to watching it, but I've seen people share it on Twitter.
It's a staff meeting video that he filmed for like 45 minutes talking about what happened, and yeah, he's basically saying he like hints to that it's something about Pfizer, but never says it. And then he talks about I liked you and you and you, and we did that and this and this, and he's like basically saying goodbye to the staff and going through some stuff.
That I think hopefully more will come out about what happened there and what's going on there. But I think it's safe to say be very skeptical of Project Veritas from now going forward. You know, what their intentions are and who's running it and all that other stuff, because we know James O'Keefe. We saw his face. We've seen him do interviews. I don't know who these board of directors are, and I don't know what their intentions are or any of that stuff. So
Yeah, I wouldn't give them a cent of my money, and I wouldn't. I stopped. I'm one of those 150,000 people that stopped following. I'm like, I don't want anything with that company to do. I know you know Zach, so maybe you should talk to him and see if he has some inside Zach worries. I guess he's been working with them, so.
yeah, they're the ones who initially released his story, went public with his story as a Google whistleblower. So I know there's a relationship there. So yeah, I mean, he's somebody I could definitely talk to in regards to figuring out like if he's heard something else or if he's talked to James O'Keefe or whatnot. So I wonder if he had to sign some non-disclosure agreement or something like that, because I'm like, why if you have a theory on what happened, why would you beat around the bush? Why wouldn't you just expose them all for saying like they kicked me out of the company and you know, they've been threatened or whatever? Like
he was super clear about that. James said that if you even like, he wouldn't hire us because we are able to think about conspiracy theories, and he said if you even are able to do that, I won't hire you. You need facts to 100%. I guess that's why he's filming everything, and that's his philosophy about that. So I guess this is the first time he just hints, and then he told the co-workers, go film it and give it to me and I will expose them. So he basically gave his old co-workers that still likes him the opportunity to snitch. We might see something.
I love the fact that people are like, why would this guy say this to this random person or whatever? I'm like, have you never been out we're around people who are trying to get laid and drinking? We will say anything and we'll disclose just about anything if it helps us get laid. Are you kidding me? Like, I was stunned how many people were like, oh, I just have a hard time believing they would disclose that. I'm like, well, how attracted are they to the person that they're talking to and trying to bring home? Because if they're really attracted to them, I'm like, I will tell them everything and I will make up some shit. You know, so it's like, are you like, to me, I'm like, have you never been around alcohol and people like at a bar or at a club or, you know, whatever? Like, people lie about shit all the time. And people also get, you know, alcohol is a social lubricant. Sometimes you disclose some of your most, I've had people disclose first night meeting them, disclose some of the most personal trauma that they've been through. And like, you know, so it's like alcohol will, you know, like I said, it's a social lubricant. It loosens you up. You end up becoming less worried about what people are going to think or whatever. You're more likely to share some personal thoughts or stories. So to me, that didn't make it unbelievable for me. I'm like, I was kind of stunned that people were they were seeing that as a reason to maybe believe that the video was fake or the guy was lying. I'm like, really? Like, you know, I need more evidence than that to think that the guy was making it up and it wasn't true. And obviously there's that picture of him, you know, I don't know if it was him with some other Pfizer employees or whatever. So obviously they're not denying that he's a Pfizer employee. So it's
also, as I understand it, the guy that's filming is also working at Pfizer. So that would make it even easier for him to open up.
And the way that he wanted to fight him at the end of the video, like that makes me think like, holy shit, I just disclosed something serious and my whole life is about to change. And that's the type of anger that I felt like I was sensing from him wanting to get physical. It wasn't, to me, it seemed like, okay, there's something more here. There's something going, like you don't get that upset, if you made up the story. Like, you'd be pissed that I got filmed, but like, okay, well, screw that guy, because he just caught me on film saying a bunch of shit that wasn't even true. So, the joke's on him. It's like, no, that wasn't the type of feeling that I got. I got like, oh crap, like I just said something I should have never said, and I'm on video saying it. Like, so yeah, it's fast. Who knows? I mean, in the
Yeah.
conspiracy,
I think they broke him though, because they brought the guy that he was dating with them, because in the middle of the clip he's like, he recognized him and he's like, why did you do this? I'm never gonna trust anybody again. I'm like, okay, that hurt. That even as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh shit. He just realized the dude that betrayed him is standing there, and he looks at him and like, how could you do this? I'm never gonna trust anybody in my life again. So like, yeah, that dude is gonna need some serious therapy.
well, that video went from Project Veritas to Jerry Springer very quickly. All of a sudden, I'm like, am I watching Jerry Springer? There's like a love triangle, and the camera guy's getting beat up. It's like, I'm like, oh my god, this is literally Jerry Springer. So, but it's it's another, again, like that story, the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. I mean, there's so many stories that like seem to be important and kind of overlooked. So it makes you wonder why. But that's a problem with the conspiracy world. Like, everything's a psyop. Everything could potentially be a psyop. So you never know what's a distraction, what really isn't a distraction. What last time I had Ryan on, which was just an episode or two ago, we talked about this, and because Ryan will sometimes, he seems to always think like, oh, well, that could be a psyop, that could be, and I'm like, well, could you just go down the rabbit hole thinking everything's a psyop? Which, I'm not to say that like there's not.
I have to interrupt you here, because he's right. This is what he's been saying for like 2-3 weeks. Now, when they did the Twitter files and never showed evidence, now they're gonna do it again. And just today, Tucker Carlson got like the 40,000 hours from the January 6th, and he's just going to show what he wants to show, and you can't question it. It's like they're doing this limited like hangout, yeah, and it's fucking sucks, because now we're gonna see on Fox News 10 minutes of that 40,000 hours, and just gonna give Tucker Carlson the benefit of doubt that he gives the both sides. I mean, that's bullshit.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the CIA admit that they assassinated Kennedy, and it just goes
that
past in
too.
the wind.
That's so crazy. It's not even funny.
Well, yeah, it didn't get any airtime. A couple of people picked up on it, and then, oh look, there's a balloon.
Also, you guys blew up Nord Stream 2. I'm like, should anybody in the European Union question that 2 countries that are not in the European Union just came into Europe and blew up our things? No. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah,
I actually had the argument in my workplace that we should start a war with the US today, and people was so angry. I was like, why shouldn't we? I mean, I would hate to fight with you guys, but like, if we are gonna stand on our morals.
Seymour Hersh was just on, speaking of Russell Brand, was just on Russell Brand recently. I think today or yesterday he was on, and he was talking about the blowing up the pipeline, and he's like, it's obvious who else would do it, right? Like, obviously it's the US, and I think he said a joke, something like one of his friends told him that, like, hey, you're getting a lot of attention for just stating the obvious. Like, it's not making fun of Seymour Hersh, but it's like he's basically just saying something that's like pretty obvious, but nobody else is saying it, so he's getting all the attention for saying it. And that seems to be the case, because the pipeline's another story that nobody's talking about. So thank God for alternative media, and thank God for, all these podcasts that we listen to, and people who are willing to go down these rabbit holes and ask these questions. Because if not, it's like, where else would you going to get this information? And again, this goes back to why I appreciate Rockfin and Rumble and BitChute and any platform that lets us post alternative perspectives and sometimes controversial conversations without censoring. So, but thanks again, guys, for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. These are always fun. We actually got to go a little long today because I got a text message saying that I had a little bit more time, so I figured I'd take advantage of it. So always a fun discussion. Hopefully I see you guys on the next one. I promise the next one won't take so long, and I'll try to do the same thing I did with this one and kind of give everybody a little bit more of a heads up. It seems like that works a little better if I give people 4 days, a week, or whatever it may be, and pick a day, and then makes it easier for people to kind of figure out their schedule and see if they can make it. And we'll talk again. And any last words? Anybody have anything they want to promote? Anything they want to say? Anything like that?
If you question Simon Hirsch, you can question him on one thing. He basically says that Biden has some power. I question that. Because the piece is like, Biden said, Biden did, and Biden ordered. I'm like, did he though? I don't know.
I have a small podcast called Digressing Tangents. I'm very consistent in my inconsistency in posting, and I'm always happy to have guests. It's a very, very simple format. It's more of a personal interest podcast where I talk to other conspiracy theories.
Let's hook up, Rob.
About, yeah, absolutely, Ronnie. I was going to do the questions here on as a round table, but obviously we've run out of time now. So, but always happy to have anyone on the show.
Yeah, and email me, Rob. Email me that the links to your show, and I put it in the chat. And email me, and then I'll make sure to put in the show description so people can check out your show. And I'm glad I asked, because sometimes people don't have anything to promote, but I'm glad that we could use this platform to promote your show, and we'll definitely check it out. And do you have a website, or do you have any platforms that you're on that you want to direct people to?
I use Anchor at the moment, and what I do normally is I save the MP3, and then if I remember, I post it up onto Float, and and I keep a backup. Basically, that's so until Anchor censor me or ban me, I'll just keep doing it there.
And Anchor, can you get your podcast on like Podcast Addict? Because I know Podcast Addict.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm on Podcast Addict. I have it set up for myself. So basically, when I release an episode, it comes up on my feed, and then obviously I don't listen to it because I know what I'm going to say. But I do pretty much everything through Podcast Addict because of where I live. I download the podcast, and then I can listen to it as I'm driving to work, because I don't always get signal, like Wi-Fi signal when I'm driving, which kind of circles back to what you said about Rumble. I was listening to what you said about Rumble, and I meant to ask, can you download on Rumble, like onto your device? Because when I listen to a podcast on Podcast Addict, I have it set to delete an episode once I've listened to it. But if I'm listening to something and I think, oh, that is important to remember, like Greg said, I'll just pause it, go into my app, and then save it somewhere else. So I've got a file of podcasts that I think were worth saving.
I don't think I was actually just looking at it now to see if I can see any download, any place where you can download. I don't think you can download on Rumble. I think Odyssey you can. I think Odyssey you can literally download anybody's video.
Odyssey you can download video, but obviously
they would be super big though, because I just checked my podcast videos, and that they're already over 100 gigabytes of space taken just from my
Yeah,
37 podcast. So
I downloaded the whole four or five episodes for the the digital currency, getting out of the digital currency. I'm having a brain fart on that. But each episode was 1.4 gigabytes. I mean, luckily my phone's got a 1 terabyte hard drive on it, but it's still a lot of information to be downloading.
yeah.
Yeah, I see. I'm on Rockfin now to see if Rockfin gives you the option. I think it does actually. You can download on Rockfin. I think I'm downloading right now. I'm at 5%. I'm accidentally just started downloading it. I don't know how to turn it off, but yeah. So apparently on Rockfin, if you're signed in, you can download it there, which is cool. So that's another option. Rockfin kind of gives you the download feature if you want to watch the video and or listen to it later. So yeah, I mean, I've worked in places where I have bad service, so having the option to download the audio or video is definitely useful. That way, you don't have to worry about buffering or anything like that. But yeah, so definitely check out Rob's podcast. Check out Ronnie's podcast. Check out Rob and Ronnie's podcast together that will happen in the future. And then also thank you, Greg, for joining us. Greg, if you have a podcast, let us know, or if you're on any social media platforms or anything you want to promote, let us know.
No, nothing here. The only thing I'll add, when I say I download, I use a screen recorder because too many of the things do or don't have the ability to download. So I just use, it's called Debut. It's a screen recorder. It'll record everything. That way I don't have to try to figure out every apps. Can I download here, or can I get like a 4K video downloader for YouTube or that? I just use one program, Debut, and it's a screen recorder, and that's how I record it.
Great. So that's another piece of advice for people. Yeah, I mean, people, I know things are a little bit of an inconvenience because many of us aren't on YouTube, but once you kind of get in the rhythm of doing, using these other apps and other methods of getting the content you love, then it's not really that hard or that much extra work. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will keep you guys all updated on the next one. Hopefully, I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so my goal is to get this episode out. Also, the one that I just did yesterday with Alex Craner, we did a awesome, like almost 2 hour.
That'd be good.
Yeah, Alex is awesome. Yeah. Unfortunately, we started the first 20 minutes talking about soccer, so I apologize for anybody who I told Alex.
Well, that's still good. I can talk soccer all day long.
I told Alex, I'm like, I hope people get to the end of this episode because it was such a good episode. I'm like, I hope nobody turned it off because of all the soccer talk in the beginning. But it was a fun episode, and as you guys know, and I'm sure Greg, you know, and that's why you're commenting the way you're commenting. Alex is very fascinating and always a blast to listen to. So that was a really awesome podcast we did yesterday. So hopefully I'll have that out and this out in the next couple days before the weekend, and we'll all keep in touch, and hopefully we all gather again on the next Patreon podcast.
Thanks a lot, Ricky.
Yes, thank you. See you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.